In After Effects, we do a lot of effects on videos, obviously. And one of the very useful effect is changing time. It means playing the movie faster or slower, or mixing fast and slow, and making some time in the video that's very fast or very slow, and so on, mixing all these time games. Now, we want to learn here how to use the frames per second and understand what is frames per second for a video. And also for the composition in After Effects, it's all the same concept and the same understanding how to use the frames per second. I have created a composition here. This composition, if I come to composition setting, you know already this very well, I hope. I have used 1280 by 720, 25 frames per second, and the duration of the composition is 25 seconds. There is a layer here which is a video. If you click on the video here, you will see that video is 1280 by 720. It is 12 seconds and 12 frames, and also it is 25 frames per second. Now, if you have a video that you want to put in a composition, you should always try to match the frames per second of the video and the frames per second of your composition. To do that, you don't have to come and create a comp here, a new comp, and put the parameters that are there. The easiest way to create it is to click on the video, drag it, and put it on the icon here that represents the comps and letting go. So immediately it'll create a new composition for you where it places the video layer, and also it uses the same parameters or the same settings as the video itself. Fine. I will delete this one. We don't need it, just to show you. This is the best way if you have a single video within your composition. So this is the video. I'm going to play it. It's a simple video. It's around 12 seconds, like we said. And we are going to decide, okay, I want to make that video faster. The first option I have, and there are several options. The first option I have is to change the frames per second for the video, the original footage that I have here. What is frames per second? Let's look at it. If I stretch to the maximum, I notice that I have 0.1 frame, 0.2 frames, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. A video is usually shot through a camera, and this camera settings could be 25 frames per second. It means every second there will be 25 frames, and if you put them all together and play them through 1 second, it will make a certain movement. Of course, I'm sure you know already that. You can shoot also up to 60 frames per second in a normal camera. So for here, I have 25 frames for every second. Now, if I make it 50 frames per second, what will happen is, if I take this same movie and make it 50 frames per second, of course, it will look like it is a bit faster. Let's try to change the speed of our footage. You select your footage here and come to the interpret footage, just the icon here. You click on it, and it will open a dialog box that is about interpret footage scaling. That's the name of the video, of course. So we have main option and color management. We care about the frame rates only. So this is 25 frames per second. What happens if I make it 50 frames per second? You notice exactly that the duration of your video is cut by half already. I doubled the frame rates. Remember, it was 12, now it is 6 seconds, 50 frames per second. If I click OK or press enter, now the video is no more 12 seconds, is only 6. If I play it, here you are, it looks much faster, and it's quite funny, it's jumping. Fine. So what did After Effects do? Let's zoom in, and you notice now it has deleted, or it has merged, actually it has deleted certain frames and compressed them maybe to make it look like it's faster. So I don't have any more 25 frames per second, I have 50 frames per second, and now the video is shorter in time. Now that's very nice. Let's go back to we select our sailing video, we click on interpret footage, and we bring it back to, let's say, 12. Now, if I put 12 frames per second, the duration of the video is going to become 26. Notice I'm changing the footage here. I'm not changing the movie on my storage device. I'm changing it just here. So I have 12 frames per second, and now it's 26 seconds. Press enter. Now the video is quite long. It's even longer than the composition. We can come here and adjust the time here. Make it, for example, 40 seconds. and a period. So now it's quite okay, I can see it here. If I play my footage now, you notice it's quite slow. Of course, it's almost half the time, even more. So where did these extra frames come from? And that's the good question to ask. Okay, I had 25 frames, now I have 12 per second. Where did they come from? Let's zoom in and see exactly what After Effects did. This is my first frame, nothing is happening. Another one, nothing is happening, and so on until the number 5. So for 5 frames, it was still the same frame. So After Effects had duplicated these frames one after the other. Then if I come to 6, nothing happens, and so on until the next frame. It's almost at 8 here. 9, a bit more, and nothing happens. So actually, so what After Effects has done is to duplicate the frames, or duplicate the shots if you want. So now for the first 5 frames is the same one. Now you get a movement here, or you get an animation that is not very smooth. You know, it's like jumping a bit. So now let's look exactly what happened here. I come to this frame, let's zoom in and look at it, you know, carefully. That is one frame. Okay, it has moved from here to here. Then it moves here, nothing, and here, and here, and here. You notice how the movement is jumping. The eye can see that because now I can discern between these frames. There is time enough for me to see that it is jumping, even on normal speed. You can see how I see it jumping here. Fine. How to remedy that? The first option you have is enable frame blending. It means After Effects is gonna blend 2 frames together to create your missing frame. That's one way to do it. To do that, first of all, you enable frame blending here. This is for the preview, to be able to preview, and then you put the frame blending on this small icon here. Click just once. When you click once, it starts blending the frames. Now notice what's happening. Before, I have this position of the mask, and then one more, I have like 2 masks here. There is kind of shadow. Okay, so let's come back here. This is the first one. This is the same one. Then this one and this one. So After Effects had taken this frame and this frame and blend them to have the frame in between. So now we have like a ghost here, or you know, a kind of shadow. We call it mainly ghost. So let's look at the movies. Sometimes some movies, videos can be, you know, render very nicely here and look very smooth. But now in this one, we see the ghost a bit. It's not much. If you're just uploading this to Facebook and so on, it's okay. But if you're doing a professional job, that will be really a big problem. Let's go back. What other options we have? If I click once again, now this is frame blending. If I click once again, I will be mixing pixels. It means that, let's zoom in. After Effects is going to try to guess what is the next position of the pixel. So if you come here, then here, over here, now there is no more ghosting. What happens is After Effects looked at this frame and looked at the frame after, for example, this frame and the frame after, and decided, okay, this is where the pixels are, and this is where the pixel will be. So in between, I'm gonna invent a new, you know, position for the pixels. So actually it's not using frames, but it's using movement of pixels, and that's why it's pixel motion. You are motioning, or you are moving the pixels. This is a very important concept. The difference between blending frames, creating an in-between frame that is the blend of the one that is before and the one that is after, and pixel motion, where After Effects try to guess or try to understand the frame before, or the position of the pixels before and the position of the pixels after, and create one in between to give you a smooth motion. Now this is very important. When you become a real pro, you will notice that many of these techniques are not very conducive when you're doing commercial high quality work. But for now, it's okay. You can start learning from there, and then we go to, maybe in this course, I hope so, to go to more advanced plugin that will help you doing, you know, more better merging and better slow motion. Now let's play our movie, put it back at 100%, and I think this is okay. we have stretched the time. It has become very slow, and we have used pixel motion here to be able to have a smooth movement. Now, there are a few things you have to look at. We have changed the footage. So if I come here and create a new composition with the same footage, of course, the layer here is going to use this footage, which is the modified footage here. So by changing the footage, by changing the interpretation of the footage, you are exactly changing the footage in your whole project, not only in the composition. But sometimes you don't want to do this. I'll delete this one. And what you want to do is just to change the layer speed, or working only on this layer, not playing with the footage. We will see that in the next lecture. There is an important notion here I want to mention to you, but I think you already guessed it. It's changing the composition frame rates. Does it change the speed of your video within the composition? Let's go back to setting and return it to use frame rate from file, the original one. I press enter, and I have, of course, now 25 frames per second. Look at my animation, it's back to 12 seconds here. Cool. Now, what happens if I change the frame rates of the composition? Will it change the speed of the video inside? Let's try it. I right click on the composition, go to composition setting, and make it, for example, 55 or 55, sorry. Okay. Now, so I still have 40 seconds, obviously, because the time in the composition setting is set for 40 seconds. The video also did not change any time. But what is happening is the frame rates have changed. So now you have a very jumpy video somehow, or a very smooth video the way you want it. If you run it, of course, what you want to do is to come always to info and ensure that you are not running something red. That is not the real time. Frame per second is 17 and 18. So you want to wait until it renders, then judge the movie or look at it carefully. Like now, this has been rendered, the green one. I play, and my movie here has changed. Actually, it's very jumping. Let me give you an extreme, very nice example. If I come to composition setting here and I make it only 1. Cool. Fine. So what's happening exactly? If you play, still 40 seconds, it's still 12 seconds, but it's not gonna play all the frames. So look how it's gonna jump, right? It's already rendered and it's jumping completely, meaning I don't play every frame of the video. I play, 1 frame every second. Since it's 12 seconds, actually I'm playing 12 frames. Let's zoom in and you notice 1, 2, 3, 4, and you are at 12 frames only. So it's quite a jumpy movement, and this is quite cool. Sometimes you can really play with it and give this kind of effects for a video. That's quite interesting from time to time. Also using this one and echo, there is an effect here that's echo. We'll see it in this course. Will give you something very beautiful and something very unusual. Cool. Just to let you know that changing the frame rate in the composition does not change the duration or the time, or to slow or speed up a video or the layers themselves. It just makes them jump from one frame to another according to the frame rate that you have put. That's about the composition frame rates and how it affects your videos or your layers. And in the next lecture, we are going to see how to change the time here. It's going to become quite interesting for a layer. See you then. Hi guys, and in this lecture we are going to look at how to stretch or shrink the time of our video. Please, I hope you downloaded your project file. It was in the lectures before, and open with me the stunt stretching. It's nice that you open and follow up with me. I'll double click to open it, and here I have a video that is 5 or less than 5 seconds, and it's a very beautiful video. Look at these two guys coming in. By the way, this is from Pixabay, and you can get all kinds of movies there. Is free, and you can use it anywhere you want. Now, what I want to do is to make that video a bit speedier. I don't like the speed. I want it much speedier so these guys, can fly better. How do I do that? Well, of course, you can come and change your settings in the footage, but that's not what we want. We want just to work on this layer because we want to use this video somewhere else in our project. So what I do, I come to this icon here that's expand or collapse, the in-out duration and stretch pans. Let's open it. And what do we see? We see in, out, duration, and stretch. This is a very special I would say settings. The in, if you click on in and click only on the in, you can decide where your in point of the layer will start. Let's say I put a 10, that will be 10 frames, and you notice it has moved to 10 frames. If I press I will go to the in point of the layer, and it is at 10 frames, as you can see here. Now also you can change the out, but of course you're not gonna stretch it or anything. You're gonna change just the out. I write 500 for 5 seconds, and you notice your out point now, if I select my layer, press O, the out point is at 5 seconds. That is very practical when you are very precise. Actually, it's not very practical because you need to keep all this open to do these ones. But nevertheless, we have tons of videos here. It will be practical. Fine, let's return it. So the in point, we'll put it back to 0. Here you are. Fine. Now there is duration and stretch. So actually, you can change the duration using the duration time or using the stretch. Let's start with the duration time. I click on it and I say, okay, I want this video to become 300. That's 3 seconds. And you notice the stretch factor now is 68 point something %. Click OK. But before I click OK, I'm sure you know that because you have done the section before. It is the in point that is fixed. So the starting of the layer is fixed and it's gonna stretch from the end. Or I can make current frame or the layer out point. In our case, the way we have positioned here, the layer in point to be fixed will be cool with us, and make it 300. Notice how it has stretched in, and if I play it now, it's quite speedy. Of course, I'm not using any blending here. It's not necessary when you are making things speedier. Here you are, your movie has changed. Now, it's also changed to 68%. Let's click again and say, okay, I want a 75% or even more, 50%. And immediately the timing, if I press O, I notice that my video is now 2 seconds and 4 frames. And it is very speedy. So this is time stretch. This is how you use it. But now, let's look at something else. What happens if I make it 300? The video now is very slow. And notice what's happening. Of course, you have some issues that you need to resolve, but for this stunt is quite beautiful. So now you have used the stretch to make your movie a bit longer. Of course, you can use frame blending, and let's look at the effect. Maybe we do come here and show you the frame blending. You notice the ghosting is too much now. If I use frame blending, let's use pixel motion, much better, and without anything is the best, by the way, for this video. You know, other videos might have another case. That's why I chose this video, so it has no complication. And this is how you stretch a video within your composition and within the layer. Now notice this is pretty practical because you can come in here and say, okay, I can move it down a bit. Okay, you're doing random work now. You see, okay, that's what I want. Notice that you are working on the whole layer. It's not a part of the layer. If you want to play games here using the stretching, maybe you need to split your layer, adjust things. It's quite hard to do that. Fine. So this is about stretching, and this is how you use it. You can do extraordinary things here. And I would like you to come to After Effects, open this project, and play around with the stretch. Give it a try, because later on it will become extremely easy for you to play lots of time games with your videos. See you in the next lecture. Hi guys, and welcome to Time Remap. This is what we are going to do in this lecture, and I hope you enjoyed the previous 3 lectures and you are learning a lot about time games. Actually, it's easy, but it will get very complicated because I know your imagination is going to stretch. You're going to make things faster, slower, get confused, and that is excellent. Please try as much as you want. You want to become an expert, and the only way to do it is to try, and expand your imagination, become artistic. In the course, I'm not showing you my skills, so I don't want to be so artistic and stories like this to confuse you. No, that's not YouTube. That's a course for you to learn from, and not to show you some techniques that might or might not be useful to you. So please go ahead and open the file now, Time Remap. I hope you downloaded it. Double click on the comp, and we have a nice sushi movie here where sushi plates come in, and we want to do an advertisement here. Okay, we're not gonna do the whole ad because it takes time, and then we have a guy behind us here that makes problems, but we are going to work with Time Remap. Okay, so we will introduce Time Remap. You right click on the layer, we go to time and say enable Time Remap. When you enable time remap, same as motion graphic, you will get a keyframe in the beginning here at time 0, and you get a keyframe at the end plus 1 frame as usual. Let's forget about the last keyframe. We don't need it for now. And here what you want to do is, browse through the plates. One plate comes in, then very fast the second plate comes in, and then very fast the third one comes in, and so on. Let's work on it, and let's try to be a bit meticulous. Even if it doesn't work on the first time, we can adjust it later. Good. So what I'm gonna do, I don't want the plate to start from here. Time remap is very helpful. Let's start at 6 frames or 7 frames. Yeah, cool, it worked. And then I want to stay here for a second, so I'll copy that keyframe, move plus 100, and paste it again. So here time remap will say there is no movement because this at 7 frames and this at 7 frames. Now we want to move on to the next plate coming in. That's cool. Okay, and keyframe again, but we don't want it to take all that long. So what we are going to do is to stretch it in. The best way to do it is to come to this keyframe right here, plus 15 for example. Cool, and take this one, the keyframe, and snap it to 15. Now the plate here has to stay for 1 second, so I will take that keyframe, go plus 100, and paste the keyframe again. So notice what's happening. It's stable, it moves very fast, it's stable. Time remap is quite interesting. And then from here I wanted to move to the next plate. I will bring the next plate here. Cool, I will keyframe it, go back to the previous plate using J, and write plus 15. I remember we did 15, right? And then I will take it back here. I will snap it in. Now I want this keyframe to stay for 1 second, so I will copy the keyframe, then go and add the plus 100 and paste it. Now I wanted to move to the next plate. Cool, I will keyframe it here, but I don't want it that long, so from here I'm gonna write plus 15 and take the keyframe and put it here. And then here I want that one to stay for 1 second. I will copy the keyframe, Ctrl C, I will go plus 100 and paste it here. Fine. So from here we want to move to the next plate. Let's bring in the next plate on the comp viewer. Okay, I will keyframe it here, but I will take it back. So I will come back to this keyframe, write a plus 15 only, 15 frames, take the frame and snap it in. Now from here on I don't want it to move at all, so I will take that keyframe, go to the end here and paste it. So we have a single sample that's pretty good. So it moves fast, and that's pretty cool. Now of course you could move on and do the other plates, but I think you don't want to see me more copying and pasting keyframes. But I'm sure that you understood the concept of time remap within a video and how to use it. Cool. Now the nice thing here, you can introduce the easy ease, or you can make them even roving keyframes. That would be nice. Let's introduce easy ease and see what happens. I will come to the graph editor, I select all the keyframes and easy ease them. That's pretty nice, pretty cool like this. We need to adjust the time here, but it's okay. Let's play it, and it comes in, and here you are. Now that will be very nice with a motion blur. So let's add the motion blur. Now of course the motion blur here will not work because this is for layers movement. You are not moving any layer here, you are moving the video, playing with the time of the video. So that motion blur does not work for videos unless the video is flying around, the layer is flying around. Now let's go to add this motion blur. I will come to effect and preset, and obviously I'm gonna find it under time. That makes sense to you, I think, why you're finding a pixel motion blur under time, because you playing with the video and you want to blur the time within the video, something like this, or the motion within the time of the video. So let's take the pixel motion blur and drop it on the layer. And this is a very easy effect. It doesn't take a lecture to explain to you. You have the shutter, you have the angle, and the samples. Make this 7. For our case here is okay. The distance is quite small, so the movement is not so rapid, but it will show nicely. And you have the vector detail that you can increase or decrease. I'll leave it to 20, that's okay, it will render faster. Let's come to preview and Just let's preview it. Now with the motion blur or pixel motion blur, it's gonna take longer time to render. So I will stop the video until it renders completely and get back to you. So here you are, it has finished rendering, and you notice how beautiful it is. It is quite interesting to work with these effects in After Effects and how to manipulate your videos. Of course, this video is fine and what you have done is fine, but you have a problem with the guy behind. He kept on jumping into the scene. Maybe we should remove it using rotoscoping or other methods like masking or whatever we need. Fine. So thanks very much for listening. And this is about time remap. You had a very big example to work with, and I hope it was very useful. I want to draw your attention to a couple of things. You notice this video is pretty sharp, but the last frame here is blurred. Something should be done about it, not in this lecture, but later on you will learn how to remove the blur from the last shot here. I'll see you in the next lecture. I want to give you another example here to enable your creativity using remap or time remap. So we have a nice movie here, just a smoke. Okay, it's coming out slowly, easily, not so interesting. How can you, play with it with time remap so you can make it more interesting or more usable, I would say. I will come to the beginning here, I will right click and say time and enable time remap. Fine. So the smoke is coming out. Let's give it 1 second only here and push it further up to, for example, this point here. Yes. Okay. So we want this to come up very fast. Here you are. It's coming now much faster, and then it slows down to come there. Let's bring this keyframe to here and play again. Not bad. Okay, what will be nicer is to add an easy ease to all of them. I press F9 for easy ease. I'll go to the graph and simply take this one and move it, but we don't want it to die completely, so we're gonna lift a bit the keyframes for speed. I am here in edit speed graph. Something like this will do. Right? Let's look at it. Let's start from here, and since it dies here, let's stop our layer, our work area on this side. Here you are. Just a simple example to show you. Okay, you can do something else. For example, the speed comes up and goes like this. That's one way to do it. And there are so many ways that you can play with it, so it becomes more interesting. So just using time remap, you can really make certain videos quite interesting, certain small shots. This is an example where it became something that is usable. You can come back here, for example, and just take this one on this side, I think. Yep, that will do. Wow, now it becomes like, an explosion instead of cigarette smoking. So that's what you can do in time remap, and I hope you get to After Effects, get some clips. I recommend Pixabay. They're not marvelous, but you can work with them and they are free. And there are other sites that you can get some video clips where you can try time remap and expand your skills and your creativity. See you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we want to work with time warp. So let's double click on the composition, open it. And we have our nice movie here. We already worked with this video. And we have the swinging bulbs. So it's quite a good demonstration with this video. Now I want you to stretch your imagination. Though I'm showing you for this video, you can just start imagining what you can do with other videos that you shot at home, at work, or even professionally, what you can do with them, and what kind of skills you can develop and expand really your imagination. So first of all, we have the composition here that is 25 frames per second, and our video also, if we come to bulbs, dancing bulbs, we also have 25 frames per second, and this is a 12 seconds video, and at the end here also we have 12 seconds. So we notice that the frames of the video are equal to the frames of the composition itself. So we have here around 300 frames. I want to draw to your attention to that. Fine. Time warp is distorting time, making your video speedier or slower depending on your needs, and it has some nice effect there. I will go to effects and preset, go to time and have time warp. I'll take it and drag it, drop it on the layer. Now time warp is a somehow very developed and complicated effects, all we want to do is to work with the motion blur and speed here, or source frame. So we will do, this lecture will be about speed, the next lecture will be about source frame. So now we'll work with speed. As soon as I put the effect time warp, the speed dropped to 50%. If we play our movie here, we notice that the movement is at 50% or something like this. Okay, so let's put the speed, for example, at 100. So that is the normal speed, it's 100. Now that's pretty cool, but what I can do is to keyframe the speed here. I will come to the layer, press U. I cannot see my keyframe over here. Let's go to half a second, something like this, and keyframe again the speed and make it, let's say, 500. Now look what happens. It starts slow at 50, gradually it goes to 500. That's very beautiful. What I want to do here is to change to hold keyframes, because it will stay 50, then it moves to 100 or 500 suddenly, and you can see the difference. So it starts and moves very fast. Now I wanted to render to the end and show you what happens. Notice that the speed was 50 here. That's pretty cool. It used several frames or hundreds of frames or 50 frames from the video clip. When the speed came to 500, it also used all the frames that are available, and suddenly it has no more frames. You know, it's becoming just still because there are no more frames to move. So actually, if you want to use time warp professionally, maybe you shoot a movie much longer than what you need. Sometimes it works, and most of the time it doesn't work because you have an action movie, something like this. So we pumped up the speed to 500. What we can do is coming here, we can keyframe again. Here you are, and take down the speed here to let's say 20 only. And let's look at our movie now. We have a nice one. Speed goes up and speed goes down, and we still have few frames until it will stop. Well, let's take 6 seconds. That will be okay, and we can trim the work area here. Now in this here, if I move the keyframes and make this one, I will run out of frames here or video frames here. Fine, so I'll put this one back. I still have some frames to move with. Let's put some motion here, enable motion blur, and I find this very interesting. I would like you to look at the bulbs and also look at the background, what's happening. Let's play our movie. It comes in, and when the speed goes up, we have a motion blur of 5 samples. If you count the bulbs, you will find that 5 samples for certain frames, which will create the motion blur. That's pretty neat and pretty cool now. Okay, so this is about the time warp speed. You can make the speed the way you want. Let's return them to Bezier keyframes. We go to keyframe interpolation and make them all Bezier here. I will say, okay, here you are. Now the speed is incrementing to get to 500, and then it stays to 500, start dropping down. Let's see here, the effect goes up. We needed to render completely. Now we can see it in real time. It's quite interesting how you can play with the speed of a video using its own frames. Be careful, we are not spinning it empty, so there are frames here that are, you know, moving faster, or the sequence of the frames is much speedier. So maybe here you are moving at I don't know, 120 frames per second. So this is time warp, and it's quite easy to use it in this context. So now just imagine what you can do. What more can you do? So I'm making it here pretty simple for you to understand how to use the time warp, and I'm using just speed and the enable motion blur. Of course, the other parameters that we have here are pretty complicated, I would say, for time games in this section. Later on, we will see how to use them all as effects in After Effects. Thanks very much for listening for this lecture. Now, pick up a video that you have maybe while you're having your dinner, and speed up and slow down how you're having your dinner and the speed of your dinner, or your dance with your girlfriend, or, you know, driving your own car, something like this. So go shoot some movies, come back to After Effects and play with them, or go get some movies from Pixabay or anywhere else and come and play with them here to be able to create anything you want. It might seem very simple to you. It is simple to use it. I don't want to complicate it, but actually the applications are so many. See you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we are going to move on and work with time warp frames. I'm going to do it a bit differently here. I will come to my sailing here and drag it and drop it to create a new composition using this video. I want the new composition to take all the parameters from the video. So this video is 12 seconds, 12 frames, and 25 frames per second. Of course, my composition now is also 25 frames per second and has the same time. And there is a good reason why I did that. I will rename it time warp frame. Okay, that will do. I hope so. Cool. Now, why I have done this? I want to match the frames here of the composition to the frames of the video itself, or now it's my layer. So if you come to this area and you press Control and then click on the time, it will now show you the frames and not the time. Below it, there is the time. I will return it to time. So notice very well that the frames of the video are identical to the frame of the composition. And that is pretty important here. Otherwise, I will get very confused. Of course, if I want to work with different frame rates for the composition, then I will do something, quite different than that. Fine. Let's take our composition and drop it above. It will drop here. Now, this video is not so good. I'm going to show you. I will put levels to it. Okay, why I'm putting the level is to make sure that the video is quite good. And you will notice what will happen when I introduce the time warp. So I will delete level from here, come to time, and take the time warp and drop it on the video. Now, first of all, what I put as level disappeared. That's because of the order that the effects are rendered. Now, it's going to render first the time warp, then the levels. In this case, it's not going to render anything from the levels because it's above. I will take it and put it down. So the order here of the effects is always important, and you can test it out and see when it's working, when it's not. Fine. Now I have put the time warp here. Cool. I will change it from speed to source frame. If I scrub through, nothing happens. It's like the video is not playing anymore at all. That is because now the control of the frames have been overtaken by these effects here. So it is on the source frame 0 and it stays on 0 all the time. But I can keyframe it, and that's what I'm gonna do. I will keyframe it here, come to my layer, press U to see my keyframes, go for example to 1 second here. Okay. Now at 1 second, I can change the source frame. Let's make it 50 frames. So now it's gonna move from frame 0 to 50. But of course, the time in the composition is gonna be 1 second. It's gonna be 25 frames per second. For now, we are only interested in the time. So instead of moving 25 frames, I'm moving 50 frames, which means I'm moving 2 seconds. And of course, the video is gonna be speedier or double the speed. And you notice it is double the speed. Then after that, nothing happens. It's back to 50 frames, it gets stuck there, and it moves on till the end of the composition. Now, this is extremely useful if you want to think about it a bit. You can stop your movie and then go back and, run it again. You have a full control of how the movie is starting and ending. It's even easier than remap. It's quite easy here. Let's go back now to 2 seconds, for example. And instead of going to 50, I want to go to 125. Cool. I'm going to make it speedier. Let's play it and we see that it's going to go speedier. Of course, I'm using pixel motion here. Now, if I go to 125 and instead of having 125, I go back to 25. And that's going to be cool for you. Look at it. It's gonna go from 0 to 50 back to 25. Now it's going backward. Your video has gone backward. Cool. So let's move it back, and we have here 50 and 25. We are just going to make it 55. Okay, so we're going from 0 to 50 to 55 only. Let's play and see what's happening. And then it goes very slow. Now, slow motion, we need maybe to fix the pixel motion or something. For now, it's okay. Now, that's pretty cool. Let's play a game here. How I would like to work. I will delete these 2 keyframes. Now, I will go to the end of the composition. I press end to go to the end. Now, notice here we have 311 frames. If I click If I press Control and click, I will see 311 frames. This is the end of the video. Remember that we made the frames of the composition to match the frames of the video. So if I keyframe here and write 311, what will happen is the video will run normally from frame 0 to frame 311. That's pretty cool. Now I'm in control. I can take the last keyframe here, the one I put, and bring it to 75. Now, of course, I have a very fast movie playing. Watch it. It's pretty fast. So you have full control using these effects. I will return the keyframe till the end and come, for example, to 1 second. From 0 to 1 second, I will write 100 here to get to 1 second. I will keyframe, and let's make it, for example, 50. Good. So it comes here. Now, after that, half a second, I will add 12 frames. I'm gonna keyframe it again, and instead of 60.95, I'm gonna go back to 25 frames. Cool. So it's gonna come in, then come back. Then after also 12, I'm gonna go to 50 again. Now I will also add another 12, and I go to 25. Now I'm playing, and this is very nice. Notice how I made the dancing boats. So actually they are dancing. So if I take this keyframe, this one is 25 and this one is 50. I can take all of them, copy them, go to the last keyframe using K, add 12, and paste them. And notice what's happening. Now I have more dancing boats, and it's really dancing. It's very useful. So imagine a guy walking, you'll make 3 steps forward, 3 steps backward, and stories like this. Just expand on your imagination. It will be very nice if you do that. I will copy them all and go to the last keyframe. Here you are. Oh, and then I will go plus 12 and then paste, and it's okay. It's moving nicely. I run it, and you have real dancing boats here. Now this is very, very nice. Now let's go and select all our keyframes. That's very easy, and we press alternate and stretch them in. You know that, right? You hold the last keyframe and you can stretch them in, and here you are. You have the same movement but much speedier, and it's pretty cool. Fine, let's take the last keyframe here and bring it to, let's say, 1 second after. Okay, and then bring it this, and let's go and enable the blur. Okay, I'm not gonna do anything, just automatic and 5, and let's play it. Now you have a very nice motion, in fact a very unusual one, and look at the blur, how it's appearing with pixel motion. Of course, if I change, maybe the blur will change differently, and notice how it's gonna exit is gonna be quite nice. Wait for it to render completely. Here you are, it has finished rendering. I will play it again to show you, and they are dancing, then they exit in style, and it's very beautiful. Of course, I'm showing you an example. Now, better than that, I will take all my keyframes, press Control and click on one of them. They're becoming all roving keyframes. Let's go to the graph here, and you notice now they are moving much smoother, and I can play with them if I'd like to and make them, you know, jump better. Also, you can choose them all, select them and press F9. You will easy ease them. If you look at the graph now, it's a bit more sharp and the movement is quite nice. So actually this is all about the time wrap, source frame, and enable motion blur. It is not all about the time wrap, because you know, there are so many other parameters that you can use here, and they are quite nice. But for now, let's play only with time. I hope you have understood. I hope you know how to use time warp now with source frame. You can also change it, for example, to frame mix with the enable motion blur, and the whole thing will change. You know, look at it, it's changing. Even the colors are changing because of the color that you have put there, and you have a fantastic animation just for you to play with. Now it's up to you. You must go to After Effects, get a video from somewhere, a clip of 10 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever it is, something that is moving, and then play with the source frame, with the time warp, if it is for the source frame or the speed, and get used to it. Now, it's important that you do that, because when you are doing a video and you want a certain effect, if you didn't train for the time warp or any other effect, you will not remember it. And that's what used to happen with me. I used to know them all, but then I just know them. And when it comes to doing effects, it was hard for me to find out which effect I'm gonna use here and so on. It was pretty confusing. So what I did is just spend 2 hours on every effect. Of course, this is my business and I'm making money out of it, so I can afford the time, and it's very important for me. For you, just spend half hour or 30 minutes, mess up, play with it, get the movie, go out and shoot your daughter, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your mom, whatever, and make it funny and come and show them. Post it on YouTube, tell people how you have done. It is very important that you train and become, very familiar with all these tips I'm showing you, because just after 2-3 lectures, I'm gonna ask you to do a project, and that project you are going to use each one of them. I'm not gonna tell you how. See you in the next lecture, and good time roping and having fun. From time to time, you might get a video that you will want to put in the background and play it for the whole duration of the composition. This is looping the video or looping a video for the time of the comp. Now, this is important that you don't come here to the video, and that is the video. If I preview it, it's pretty nice as a background somehow, and you want to loop it all over. It is not taking the video and replicating it and then moving it or sequencing your layers the way you want. That is not the right way. How do you do that? It's pretty easy, by the way, but I want to show you. So you choose your video. Now you will go to the MP4 file in the project, and you click, of course, on the interpret footage, and you have the last option here. Actually, it's not the last option, but on my computer here is not showing the last one here. I don't know why Adobe did this one, quite big. You can decide how many times you want to loop this video. Meaning, if you put it 5 times, it will loop 5 times during the running of the composition, or during the time of the composition. You can say also 10 times. Now, before we start looping, let's look at the length of this video. I'll select the video, press O for out point. I notice it's 5 seconds and 11 frames. The length of my composition here, I made it 1 minute. So I need like 12 copies of this. I think so. So 60 times 12, yes, it will work. I will come to the bubbles here, click on the interpret footage and say, okay, loop it 12 times. Of course, you could loop it, any number of times you want. I press enter. Immediately notice how the layers stretch till the end of the composition, and even more. If I play, this video will loop till the end of the composition. So when it comes to its end, that's 5 seconds and 11 frames, it will loop again. Now, you notice there is a small stop here. That stop is not because of the interpret footage, is because of the video itself. It has a small stop later on. If you let it render, you will notice that it can go the whole time of the composition. And this is how, if you want to create a background, render it, make it an MP4, then put it in your composition, that will be quite good. And then you can loop it all the time. So this is the method. Remember, do not duplicate your layer 10 times, 15 times. Just come to interpret footage and set it to the number of times that you wanted to loop during the composition. Thanks very much for listening. This was a small tip, and I hope it was useful for you. I'll see you in the next lecture.